see what's behind it.
He probably more than anyone, because they'll get some blue flags quite early, won't they? So you want to know when the leaders are coming through and where.
So row back number 2, mirrors a problem. Yeah, definitely a problem. Also with mirror issues of the virtual variety yesterday, Charles Leclerc had an issue with what they call the virtual mirror in the Ferrari, interestingly enough. It's their system. McLaren have it too. It tells him basically where people are on the track in proximity to him. So a couple of drivers struggling with their traffic management. We saw some hairy moments as well, didn't we, yesterday? I'm concerned a little bit about that in qualifying too. Cars out there on the racetrack going at not particularly high speeds throughout various sections.
I think there's so many changes this year that you sort of got to cover them off as they come, because we haven't even spoken about race starts yet, and that is going to be something quite wonderful to watch. I think tomorrow is a nice adjective for it, because the inconsistency and the I would say an element of, it's not randomness, but it's the precision you need to be bang on it. The difference of a good start versus a terrible start is really, really fine details. But yeah, we will cover that off. Let's start with your qualifying point there is going to be really interesting, because we'll see that later on today. The drivers are having to start their qualifying laps at low speed because they need to start them with a full battery. And that means if anyone's out there trying to close a qualifying lap, as you've got traffic, those guys, they're not going to be building it up before the last corner anymore. So they're going to be trundling relatively all the way to the line or just before it, and then firing up to a high speed. So it might be a little bit more chaotic just in that final corner and the run to the line, because at that point you don't want to go offline either, because you're firing up your own lap. You don't want to be going over the muck. You want to be neatly on the racing line, the shortest route down to turn 1, because it all counts. But you're going to be going at a much reduced speed.
It's a different rhythm, isn't it? Massively different rhythm, because normally as a driver you'd sit, if you've got a slow final couple of corners, you'd sit there, you'd wait until you see something appearing, growing bigger in the mirrors, and then you'd go for it, wouldn't you? But they're going to have to be so much more on it now for exactly the reason that you describe. I think it was Komatsu yesterday also mentioned that even though there's the maximum delta time that they need to stay within, and they can't go just super slowly on the in and out laps, the beneficial way now to deliver some of these in and out laps is to go very slowly through some sections of the racetrack and very fast through others. So it's going to be a totally different rhythm that drivers are going to have to manage as they make their way to the start of their push laps. So yeah, tricky stuff. That's on that starting point that the procedure has been lengthened to allow the drivers to spool the turbo up. So I'm sure Mr. Jakes has in his start procedure, commentary-wise, some apt phraseology to fill that particular moment.
And you'll have to enjoy it tomorrow when we get our
go with the old start your engines.
Rev your engines, I think.
Don't,
yeah.
Don't ruin it for everyone.
Gentlemen, rev your engines.
Yeah, I think we get a note quite quickly. So what's the deal? Sign the cap for Tim Tams. Palmer would do that.
At least there's a bit of barter there. You've got a bit of give and take.
You would do that, wouldn't you?
Anything for the Tim Tams, yeah. Yeah, you got to.
One of the highlights of going to Australia.
A little bit of give and take there. There's a decent offer on the table.
If you're unfamiliar with a Tim Tam, superb biscuit. And we're talking biscuits as well as start procedures and energy deployment across yesterday, because we are still awaiting the official verdict. I'm sure I saw a car in the pit lane.
There was an official verdict that you got distracted by thinking about Tim Tams. 80 seconds away is the start of the session, confirmed, that came up. So that is why Pierre Gasly is in the garage as Flavio Briatore mooches on past, and drivers are getting ready. We're going to get action very soon.
Not a huge sense of urgency for Liam Lawson. And he continues to listen to a bit of music before he gets in the car. Behrman ready to start his second full season in Formula One. Everyone waiting to suddenly get in each other's way. That's what usually happens, and join the fast lane. You can join the fast lane as soon as there is a confirmed session start, but not before. Seen drivers penalised for that in previous years, including this man, Franco Colapinto, who did that in Imola last year.
Yeah, so off he goes to the end of the pit lane. But remember, there's going to be an hour on the clock here, so it's still going to be a dusty circuit. They're not flush with tyres at this stage, and we've got all the usual FP3 sessions to get through. So the light's about to go green, and Colapinto will be the only man to head out on circuit. Clean it up for everyone else.
And a green light on the gantry at the end of the pit lane, and heading out onto the circuit, the Argentine driver still looking to score his first points with the Alpine team. A mid-season replacement for Jack Doohan last year, and the only driver to go to the end of the campaign who did not score. Neither driver scored with that car across the course of the season. Gives us a chance to observe the track a bit more. A lot of lockups yesterday down at turn number 3. Bumpy down there, and the gravel track on the outside. That's going to come into play a lot more if it goes wrong today. As he gets, you can see it a little bit dusty out there. There you go.
That dust comes
trundles round, Alex,
out of the barriers, doesn't it? It's always a concern now, especially if you've got a bit of camber on the road in towards the apex, and as the Formula 3 cars did, hit that outside barrier. What those barriers are carrying, there's often a bit of water in them or debris, which is now out there on the circuit. I kind of willed them into existence, didn't I, yesterday? Commentators cursed free practice on the expectation for lockups that I wasn't seeing, and then very, very quickly everybody seemed to be locking up and firing off everywhere. Maybe I should ask for something else in FP3.
Hey, we like the drama. Yeah, keep it coming.
Power slides.
Yeah,
we'll take power slides. This man was in the final sector of the racetrack. The final corners, the rear of the Ferrari, very, very lively as he gets the power down. Drivers were talking to you about that, Jolin, in Bahrain testing when they're deploying the power. Reduced downforce through the corners, but in a straight line, these things are enormously powerful with the new regulation set.
Yeah, having you need a lot of finesse and feel with your right foot now. Getting the power down. There's a lot of quicker corners, so it's easier. It's really difficult out of the low speed. So this is the corner where we saw particularly Hamilton yesterday. Looked like he was almost having a little moment there on 13, just on an outlap there. But he's going to go steady to the line, and then he's going to go full throttle. And you can see that for when the rear wing opens and we get straight mode enabled for when he's actually gunning it. It's so obvious to see when drivers are waiting, and then go. And Hamilton's going to launch into an early push lap. This is the section down here. So this is your lock-up corner, really, from yesterday, turn 3. Bumpy, difficult. There was a bit of a tailwind pushing everyone down there as well. And then you sweep through here. This is where the F3 crashes just happened, and actually the track looks like it's cleaning up very quickly there as well. The circuit is actually really neatly broken down into what you need in each sector. Power-sensitive sector here. Straight mode enabled. There was talk before the session that might be disabled for this straight because it's quite hairy when you trim the downforce to open the rear and the front wings. You're basically on like a Monza spec wing, and that is actually a bigger corner with more G-force than you'd ever think watching it on the telly. But the teams have all said no, we keep it like that, and that would have big ramifications for energy usage and for cars bottoming, as we saw with Nico Hulkenberg yesterday as well. And then we're into the kind of where you need a lot of tyres left at the end of this section. You need energy out of the final corner. You need tyres through those two previous to it. And Hamilton comes across the line with a tiny lap on a soft tyre.
There's a bit of back and forth going on between teams, drivers and the FIA about that straight mode zone that is on effectively the back straight, except it's a full throttle section. It is not a back straight at all. We used to have a chicane in between there as well. They removed that, so it's a flat out section. So the FIA formed a U-turn. They were going to get rid of it, then they decided to keep it. They are going to assess after FP3 whether the drivers quite simply have enough grip to be turning the angle that they are when they are flat to the floor. Because if you lose the grip, you're going to have an enormous crash, and you don't want that with 21 other cars on the racetrack at that moment, especially when drivers committed at that stage of the circuit. The circuit that runs to 3.2 miles.
And of course, you got that every lap in the race. So that is right from the start, lap 1, with a full tank, with other cars all around you. And so, yeah, it's a sketchy one, that. And the speed that you're picking up there, it is huge. 320 plus kph.
Hello? It is good. Hello.
Getting up and running. The last thing you want when you're getting your Saturday morning going and your engineer's mocking the way that you just said hello. Gabriel Bortoletto checking in.
I like it, because normally it's all copy that, loud and clear, official jargon. Just a classic hello.
Well, Lando Norris once sung a song, didn't he, on his radio check, and now he gets sung in his direction basically all times, and he massively regrets doing that radio check. So you've got to be careful.
I would. I think on an outlap to start a weekend. World champion Lando Norris now. That was it. That was his rookie year. How young he seemed at the time. All of these guys. George Russell, 8 seasons in Formula One. Same as Norris, same as Albon, all arriving at the same time. Feels like they're still so young, doesn't it? But experience. They came in from F2 and sort of got on it pretty much straight away, especially Lando with McLaren. George coming through Williams, and he was competitive from the get-go.
Right, let's get a trackside view with one Pablo Montoya, who's watching on for us. 7-time Grand Prix winner. I believe he's at turn 9.
Hey guys, I'm on the entry of turn 9, and this is unbelievable. The cars look so fast going in. Something that is very different is how they have to... Look at that. How they need to blend the entries. It is very different because the lifts are a little early, but you don't look at them like they're braking, so they throw the car in. Look at that. Full speed is so good to see. It actually gets you. I'm really excited. I know the drivers don't love it, and they can complain from what they were used to, but these cars are... Look at that. It's just out of words. It's so good. It's going to be exciting. I know the drivers actually complain about this zone, and I think it's not that bad because, remember, you used to have the DRS anyway, so you had a really high aero balance. Now the cars just feels a little lighter, but I don't think it'd be bad. And I always complain, you still got a pedal you can use.
Great place to watch Formula One cars in any era. Thank you, Pablo, watching on for us at the high-speed chicane at 9 and 10, and that is a incredible change of direction, massive speed. If they do get rid of that part, they're going to be carrying the wing angle, more drag, that part of the circuit. It's gonna deplete your energy even more.
Well, I don't see that they can do it. I was surprised when I first heard that was going to change this morning, just because of 2 counts. Firstly, yeah, they are already running out of energy. When we saw it very clearly yesterday, the Mercedes are pulling downshifts on their flying laps as Sainz trundles back.
That looks like a
safe
mode. Yeah, and he's made it to the entrance of the pit lane, brought out the yellow flag, and a few meters away from where he crashed out behind the safety car here last year. Real contrasting fortunes in recent years for Carlos Sainz. Crashed out behind the safety car last year. Year before, won the race brilliantly, recovering from appendicitis. But in 2026, the Williams team that had such high hopes and have got a car that has a lot of development work required, he's come to a halt, surely going to require an intervention beyond the yellow flag, given where he is on the circuit. 51 minutes to go, delayed session, and wonder if race control will take the opportunity to use a VSC to test it for the drivers. Let's listen in and see what we get.
Again, so he's lost power, and then the car switched off. Now, there are a couple of ECU issues that arose yesterday. But in the Red Bull and the Racing Bull, we saw Verstappen and Lindblad trying to get out of the pits, and it cost them a little bit of time where the car basically just shut down from the control unit. I wonder if that's a similar thing there that Sainz has just had, or it's a Mercedes power unit issue separately to that. But it seemed a similar sort of thing. No drive, and then just the ignition switching off.
Carlos Sainz remaining in the car. Yellow flag on the entrance to the pit lane. Still staying with this configuration at the moment. Not massively trying to change anything settings-wise on the steering wheel. This is why it's a peeling past. Tight in there, but it is possible. Oliver Behrman going by. Right, let's see what he's doing here. Replacing the steering wheel, so some sort of reset being attempted.
Well, just taking the steering wheel off and then putting it back on, but I think that was probably, he was about to get out of the car and then was told stay in, we might be able to reboot it.
Here's the virtual safety car that we were expecting rather quicker, so allows everyone else on the circuit to test that the system's working. Annoys Kimi Antonelli because he was on for the fastest time, Sector 1 and Sector 2. Reduces everyone's pace, and we'll see if Carlos now departs the car.
They lost time yesterday as well.
Yeah, but everything is turned off still.
Just sit tight unless someone come look at you on feedback.
Yeah.
It does look like a game over, but I'll let you know.
So a game over would suggest it's a power unit. They've got the data there, so they'll be able to see that at Williams, but they're obviously trying to, there's so many channels, they're trying to figure out exactly what has stopped it. Obviously when you just see the numbers flatline, you realise there's got to be some level of, the source of that is going to be somewhere. But trying to then dive into all of those channels and figure out what it is. Is it a power unit issue? Is it a sensor issue that's spiked somewhere else on the car that's then turned off the power unit? Is it an ECU failure? That's interesting. So that is why Sainz, was taking off the wheel and then putting it back on, because basically Gaetan, his race engineer there, was saying, until you have to get out of the car, stay in the car, because we might have a chance to fix it.
So they tried that. Sainz getting out of the car here. Wonder if he's going to do he replaces the steering wheel, which he has to as per the regulations. And it looked like he was waving away the marshals. Just wonder whether how he gets out of the car here. If he does a jump, he's slightly worried about, does the complete safest way. There's an electrical issue with the car. You sometimes do the jump safe, don't make contact with any other part of the car. And that's why he was waving to the marshals there.
Yeah, so that again says it's a game over and a power unit issue then, and that's going to be a much bigger concern for Sainz and Williams, and he's looking a little bit in trouble right now. Missed a soft tyre run yesterday. Williams with issues on both cars, but Alex Albon pushing his Williams back in the morning run. They're not looking that quick, and they're not looking reliable. So Sainz, when you need to be out there learning the whole time, we're still under VSC.
The headrest is a bit loose on the right. It's not properly mounted in. Okay, happy.
So Alex Brundle will have that down as a major issue for Audi, but it's probably something that they can fix quite quickly if he can come in the pits.
Race ending, mate. Race ending. You won't want to be pounding around in the race with the headrest loose. I
Sorry,
drove a
mate,
prototype.
I'm busy looking at the Williams that's parked up.
Also race ending. So what we're saying is it's as important as the power unit.
It very much feels like the start of term, especially with Alex Brundle and Jolyon Palmer in the commentary box. Lovely reception for Carlos Sainz, being cheered by this very, very knowledgeable, supportive crowd to all of the drivers in the field. 22 of them now. That virtual safety car inevitably has been upgraded to a red flag with the Williams mired at the end of the pit lane. They just took the opportunity, didn't they, to test the virtual safety car ahead of the first round of the season. Everyone forced as per the regulations. If you're one of our newer viewers, and there's quite a few of you, this is return to the pits as per the rule book. Fernando Alonso was out there, so he was hoping to get some mileage done. Everyone back to the pits, and the clock will continue to run.
Well, stop the clock now, because Fernando Alonso is in the top 6 in the Aston Martin. 6 laps on the board, 3.5 seconds away from Hamilton's early pace, and looking like a team in Formula One again at the start of play today. Stroll not out there. The team were checking something on his power unit, and they're piecing that back together and very late. So we know all of the issues now that Aston Martin have. The sound of a Honda engine in 2026. I imagine race control thought, because Sainz had pulled it over so close to the pit entry, that they'd just be able to push that back very quickly. But you can see no marshals are going near it. So not in a safe mode, which means you can't touch the car, which means it takes a long time to clear.
Yeah, good communication from Carlos as well to the marshals as well. So that was good stuff from him. As Fernando Alonso is back, and he was the champion when this man was born. Fernando Alonso has the longest ever Formula One career, and he will be hoping, even though they've got real problems down at Aston Martin and they might not be able to finish the Grand Prix, he will be hoping to start. He's 426th Formula One World Championship Grand Prix on Sunday. Everyone back to the pits. Gabriel Bortoleto will be the last one to peel into the pit lane. And on a day that promises so much, with final answers to the questions who's actually quick in Formula 1 2026, after all the pre-season testing, after Friday practice, we haven't had much to show you so far. As Carlos walks back to the Williams team, let's go downstairs to Ruth Busker.
Yep, down here in the pit lane, and we're used to seeing drivers drive past us in cars. Less so is when you have a driver that walks back. Now, it's not a great start to the session. Actually, you see team principal James Vowell is getting off the pit wall to make sure that when his driver Carlos gets back into the garage, he's ready to chat to him. Now, what does a power unit, with seemingly a power unit issue like that, cause teams to do? Well, actually, it's more about the lack of running in terms of the lack of data. Every single team in the paddock is still trying to get their head around the optimization of these new regulations. And when you can't get the car back in the session, you lose your option to spend the next 43 minutes and 11 seconds collecting data. So they're going to have to rely on all of the data from the other side of the garage. As you see here, the first thing he's going to do is probably chat to his race engineer and explain to him how it felt in the car when it went on. This is the first indication that the race engineer, the power unit engineers are going to have of what went wrong. It's kind of like a diagnostic. You know, you go to the doctors, you explain how you feel with your symptoms. They're not actually going to be able to know exactly what went wrong until they get the car back. So they're going to combine driver feedback, what they saw on the telemetry with the car switched off, in terms of trying to get the parts ready that they might need to replace, or it might be as simple, but it's a case of trying to work it out. There is a really strict timer. So we have a fixed time between FP3 and qualifying. So it's not just data we're losing. If there is a problem, you can see here actually he does a great I had a snap and then it just lost it. Kind of, he's quite a visual driver when it comes to explaining what goes on with the car. Him and Max have had that since their Toro Rosso days back in 2015. I think they might have learned it from the same race engineer. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one for the Williams garage, because depending on what went wrong, it could be as simple as a power cycle, which is our F1 term for turn it on and off again, or a full refit. Back to you, Jakesy.
Thank you, Ruth. Considerations for Williams, because of all the talk about Aston Martin, Jolien, in Bahrain and practice one. We had James Vowell on the show earlier on, but Williams are miles away from where the expectations were. It's almost been a reverse. 5th in the Constructors' Championship last year, podium finisher on 2 occasions with Carlos Sainz. They were expecting that to be something that they could talk about this year, and instead, early signs are that they're on the back foot.
Looks pretty bad, doesn't it? I mean, James was explaining to the guys earlier on that they're basically heavy, and they've got lots of works already in the pipeline to reduce the weight and add the downforce at the same time. But for a team that's got the Mercedes power unit, which we think is the class of the field, and have been preparing for this set of regulations for a long time, as Carlos Sainz joined the team thinking that this was going to be his year to be back at the front with Williams. Yeah, he did a great job at the end of last year. That was a bonus. This was meant to be the year where Williams were back to being a front-running team genuinely. the full refresh. It looks hard to explain, I think, for Williams, how they've managed to have so much resource and effort and time looking purely at this set of regs. And that was told to us very frequently last year, that next year was the big year. And they've taken a huge step backwards, it seems. Let's wait and see where they end up in qualifying. But as I said, it's already going to be a tough job for Sainz now, regardless, because he's going to be missing out on lap time. The car's not reliable, and it's not very quick.
We are expecting the rate of development to be ferocious this year in Formula One. That's a saving grace for anyone who's had a really tricky start to the year.
Lando Norris is the longest-serving McLaren driver in their history.
Yeah. But who's
that's crept up on me.
Who's the second longest serving?
I'm going to say it's Britain's very own David Coulthard.
Absolutely right. He joins us for qualifying in the Grand Prix. Palmer saw the segue coming. Nicely done. Yeah, Lando Norris with an incredible run. All with one team. All with the same team. Spoke about it on his final lap of the championship. He had offers to bail out when they were at the back. Did not do so. And reap the rewards when they in the last couple of years, really at the end of that, and that's another sign, isn't it, for anyone who's had a tricky start. McLaren's journey from getting it completely wrong with the new regulations to being the dominant team by the end of the rule cycle shows that you can turn it round even if it is a tricky start. And as if by magic, it's the McLarens who lead us back out onto the racetrack with 38 minutes to go.
And they're still a force to be reckoned with, aren't they? They've assembled a great crew of people at McLaren. The job that Zach Brown and Andrea Stella has done since becoming the team principal, and you can just see he is such an intelligent, methodical team principal. Understands the engineering background. That's where he's come from. Was a race engineer with Fernando Alonso, looking at title fights with Ferrari. Moved over to McLaren, and now as a team principal has that depth of understanding there of what goes into to putting a car on the track and making it quick. And the way they've also managed to get the harmony going between what goes on at the factory, where they've got a huge amount of people working to bring upgrades, to understand the cars, and with simulation tools, with the wind tunnel, work out exactly how they can make these cars quicker, because this is just the start. The trick for McLaren has been in the last generation going from the back to the front by bringing upgrades, aerodynamic parts mainly, that work, and that will still be in their armory this year and in the future. It seems like they've managed to get the calibration. That's like the first thing that you need to have as a team, to understand why you aren't as quick as you want to be and how to be quicker. And if you don't know that, you're in a real pickle.
And that was one of the elements that allowed McLaren to draw level with and overtake Red Bull. Red Bull have done a lot of work on the correlation from what they see in the wind tunnel to the racetrack, allowed them to get back on terms as well. A fascinating end to the season. So cars peeling out of the pit lane. Lando Norris with the soft tyres on the car. Let's see some fast laps around Albert Park, shall we?
So let's hopefully keep with Lando Norris on this lap. An important session for Lando because he missed a lot of track time yesterday. I want to look at the active aero here. So this is the rear wing and the front wing opening on the McLaren, because yesterday there was a difference in recharge approach from Piastri to the Mercedes as well. He was lifting and coasting a lot more. So that means the active aero shuts before he hits the brakes, and it's the case there again. Whereas the Mercedes were running it flat, using clipping, engine harvesting on full throttle, and then they were shutting the active aero by hitting the brakes. So a difference in technique. Slowing. Oh, a lot of slowing and a downshift.
And if you've not watched with us so far this season, that is necessary to recharge the battery. Otherwise, you would be way down on power in the final third of the racetrack.
Yeah, that seemed a whopping amount on board there, didn't it? In towards turn 9. That is the most significant area on the circuit in terms of energy harvesting at full tilt, or what should be full tilt, using the MGUK to go against the internal combustion engine and get that recharge. So it's a different way of doing it. If you can recharge at 350 kilowatts if you're lifting and coasting. That is only 250 kilowatts if you're full throttle. But then you have the drag effect of the active aero being open, and it's all a trade-off, because of course if you're lifting and coasting, which is the McLaren technique, the active aero shuts and you get a load more drag for a little bit more recharge. It's the technicality of these cars is so intense, and that is why teams need to be on the track the whole time to learn what's best. Do I stay full throttle into all the corners and just do it as a super clip, or do I lift and coast, which is what drivers are more used to in recent times as well, for fuel saving, and effectively now it's energy saving.
What's really interesting, guys, is something I was catching up with yesterday, because there's still another way out there as well, as we see Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah, a little bit of confusion, wasn't there, Alex, on track between the Ferrari and Kimi Antonelli. He's just gone fastest.
Another concern, actually, just to jump to that moment with Antonelli, because if they do have to get out of the throttle like that, I think that's what we saw with Hülkenberg yesterday, by the way, where it then shuts the active aero and almost sort of belly lands the car on the straight with the extra downforce that you've got. Speaking of Hülkenberg and Audi, I watched his best lap from yesterday, and the car is doing a tremendous amount of harvesting through the 3, 4, 5 section. Actually, where the driver intends to lift the throttle, rather than lifting the throttle, it's just pumping that engine into the battery. You can hear the engine note continuously changing. The Audi appearing to do plenty of that through exactly this section of the racetrack, almost more than anything else. So it's really interesting to see the way they're going about trying to grab that energy back.
Lock up for Hamilton down at turn 3. He was launching into a fast lap as Antonelli was finishing a fast lap. That's exactly what we described earlier on, as Bottas shows him how to really lock up down at turn 3. Double front, missing a lot of downforce, and certainly missing it at that moment there for Valtteri. But that Antonelli closing speed on Hamilton was vicious. And that is Hamilton about to start a flying lap, Antonelli closing a flying lap. Qualifying is going to be all about people either starting or finishing a flying lap, and there's going to be 22 of them doing that. That is no mean feat to get a clear lap and not plain run into the back of someone at the end of the lap. And of course, when you're on a flying lap closing it out, you're thinking, great, there's a car in front, I'm going to take a bit of a slipstream to the line. Well, you don't know when that car is going to actually pick up speed. If they've got an issue, you don't know what's going on. So there's a bit of risk there.
And that's not in the muscle memory, is it? That they will not have experienced that at any point of their racing careers.
Right, so muscle memory doesn't exist in Formula 1 right now. This is a whole new thing that we're dealing with. Yes, when you get to the corners, when you're in the corners, it's back to muscle memory. But even here, as you're approaching it for Leclerc, we just seen on board, they are slowing down into the corners. Then you're not thinking about braking as late as you can, hustling it down a couple of gears. We'll hear it again as he slows down and then picks a braking spot. It's all a learning curve for everyone here, teams and drivers, and that's just driving the car.
There's a blue light on my left. LED, I don't know what it is. It's really off-putting. Could be the toggle, could be. It's not the toggle.
Charles Leclerc, fastest of anyone so far, 120.2. It's not the toggle, as Lewis Hamilton gets used to operating with a new race engineer. And congratulations to Charles and Alexandre Leclerc. They got married in Monaco just before the season started.
He had a nice spring in his step, turning up to work. For Leclerc then, it is kind of in the lower speed stuff and the little punches between corners like you have at the end. That's more your sort of old school focus on the driving stuff, and there is still differences to be made. It's all on the driving. The devil's in the detail on the driving, but the feeling of the driving is quite different. And as I said, that's just in literally trying to go fast, but trying to find a clear space, trying to deal with traffic and all the rest of it. That's something else that's going to have to be kind of relearned as well, because closing speed. Remember a couple of years ago when George Russell went off on the last lap behind Fernando Alonso because he wasn't expecting him to slow into the corner? Seems a bit laughable now, doesn't it, that Alonso got a penalty for that? It's what we're going to have routinely. It was a joke at the time.
I was going to say, honestly, Fernando thought it was a joke at the time.
It was a stupid penalty, and now, with the cars now, it just laughs at it, doesn't it? It laughs at that.
I actually think, though, guys, that the neat and tidy driving, particularly in the slow-speed corners, is more of a premium than ever. Because if you think about going into one of these slow corners, rotating the car. If you do lose a little bit of that apex speed, what you then need is even more energy, don't you, to get yourself back up to speed and out again, and that's energy you can't lose later in the lap, as Piastri finds one of those laps.
But if you miss your apex, you're also longer off throttle, so you have more time to recharge in the apex, and you sometimes get a bit more energy. So the complexity is like five-dimensional in all of this. We're all trying to figure it all out.
It will become, every single week, more and more apparent. The teams will look at each other's homework at the end of race distances, and as ever with Formula One, it will converge. But at the start, so much for drivers and teams to consider. It's a Ferrari 1-2. Lewis Hamilton 8 times on pole position at this venue. He's currently the fastest driver.
Speaking to some guys at Mercedes earlier on, they were saying Ferrari are good. They didn't show their hand that much yesterday. Leclerc, well, he topped FP1, but made a setup change for FP2. They didn't love it. He's gone back on that for today. And they are 1-2 and looking pretty good out there. Everyone on the soft tyre. Russell trying to get a lap in now that's competitive on the soft tyre, but it's not a good first sector, so nothing's coming in on this lap. I mean, he's actually done a pretty reasonable middle sector. And there's a massive trade-off as well between being good in which sector, because it's about when you're deploying your energy, as well as which corners suit which cars and all the rest of the usual Formula One stuff.
Yeah, Formula One and a whole host to get used to. Lando Norris has gone up to 9th. Let's go back to turns 9 and 10. Juan Pablo Montoya, two-time Indy 500 winner, is watching on for us.
How are you guys? Something that is quite interesting. I mean, still earlier into turn 9, but it's kind of crazy as they need to recover how much earlier they're getting off the gas. So you can still hear them, blowing by me. But at this point, they're already starting to come up the gas to start recovering to the next straight. So normally you would go a lot deeper. You would go maybe 40, 50 meters deeper before you had to brake and turn into the corner. Now, you're not really braking that much, so the way they roll into the corner is crazy, and it's hard because they got to time how they got out of the gas and when they got out of the gas and everything to control the entry speed. And I think that's a completely new discipline for the drivers, and it's whoever can do that better is going to make a huge difference.
Thank you, Juan. Just going past our trackside reporter, pretty useful trackside reporter to have, given his racing CV, George Russell, who is many people's championship favourite. Do you know anyone who's not tipped George Russell for the title?
No.
So that's pretty overwhelming, isn't it?
To be blunt, it all points towards this guy, but this session, we're going to double check that after FP3, because as things stand, he's 11th and he's trying to put times on the board, but they're not coming for him right now. Kimi up there in 4th, George on a soft tyre, unless he's doing something very different in terms of his run plan. Maybe he's done a couple of consistent laps that are a fair way off there. But yeah, Mercedes still generally seem very happy. Look how close the field is, though, at the top. That is impressive. I'm not ignoring Bortoletto in there in the Audi. Having a great run, Audi at the moment. Ferraris and McLarens look close. Verstappen wasn't particularly happy yesterday. Had an issue at the start of FP2. Lost a bit of track time. Had a lock-up later on as well. Wasn't feeling completely at one with the car. Hadjar was having some deployment issues as well, and FP2 wasn't enjoying his Friday afternoon either. Unlike this guy who had a great day, and he jumps back into the top 10. That's a hard tyre for Lindblad.
Hard tyre top 10. FP2 in 8th position. FP1 in 5th position. Arvid Lindblad loving life in Formula One and doing something different. From the hard tyre to the soft tyre, Kimi Antonelli with a chance today to become the youngest ever driver to take a Formula One Grand Prix pole position. He already has a sprint pole position in his career, scored in Miami in his rookie season last year. That was at 18 years of age. If he gets one today, it's the youngest to ever do it for a Grand Prix.
Yeah, picture in picture is Piastri going very quickly as well. Quickest man yesterday, starting to light it up neatly through 9 and 10 on the back of an already decent first couple of sectors. So we're starting to see teams still on this first set of soft tyres for Piastri as well. Long run for him. Everyone with a set of tyres to go through, but they're putting everything they're learning into effect. We're going to get a truer picture of a quali sim later on. Here we go with Oscar.
Soft tyres, home favourite, slipstream ahead, fastest time, Oscar Piastri with a 1:20.1. Lewis Hamilton last time around did a 1:20 at 9.1, building up. The outlaps a huge part of qualifying day as well. Seeing the various different laps in between. The outlaps before you push on. Personal best in Sector 1. Can he find anything in Sector 3? His teammates finding a lot in Sector 2 and Sector 1. Hamilton with the active aero. Now, time falling away. What about Charles Leclerc? It's going to be quicker.
His first sector is seriously quick. 2/10 quicker than anyone else. So he put a tidy second sector together as well. That's a short shift on the apex of turn 11 there. It's flat or as close to through turn 12. Quite sedate through there, less sedate through 13. And now you're scrabbling to the exit. This is where you've got loads of power. And it's difficult to try and get that down. That's a good lap from Leclerc.
Consistently quick through all three sectors.